Hello everyone and welcome. In this video, we're going to take a look at some different import functions. Now, there are a lot more things you can do with each of these, and each one could have their own in-depth video, but we're just going to at least go through them, the use cases, and a little bit on the sharing ones. Now, the ones that we are looking at are import range, import XML, import data, import HTML, and import feed. I'm going to start with the ones that I generally use more and then kind of go with the less ones. But again, depending on your use case, some of these might be more or less helpful. So the first one is import range. And this is a function you can use in order to pull data from another Google spreadsheet. So I'm just going to copy this and put it over. I'm just going to put it in E here. And it's all there. Essentially, what you have to use for it is the spreadsheet URL here. And essentially, you would use one up into the last point. Let me just go down here. And you don't need this part where it's edit or view or whatever afterwards. You just need the docs Google /spreadsheet/D, and then this part here, which is the ID. So again, you can see it's there. Next, you need to decide what the range string you want is. So in this case, for this one, it's going to be AG. Now, of course, I already have this pre-made. I'm just going to open it so we can see what's on this one. So here is that URL, and it is here, this import table. It has some names, and it goes until GH. Now, you can see that you can continue on if you want, and it goes down, but this is the range. There are two different tabs. There's this one and a challenge task that will be used, well, for the challenge task. So let's just go back here. When you push enter, it's going to start loading. Sometimes there's an error load here. And the first time you might notice kind of this orange, like you have to allow it, and you have to allow it the first time you do. So just a heads up, if you see a pop-up there, you just have to make it because you are pulling content from a different source. And that'll be true with all of these ones. We have all of this data, and it mirrors what's on the other one. We have up to 100. And let's go back to that other one, and let's just say we clear some of the data here. I'm going to go back, and you can see that there's a delay, but eventually clears. So let me just go undo. That is something that you can use, and it is helpful to be able to pull data from another spreadsheet. Now, I have it in a range, and you can optionally use the structured table and reference that structured table. So I'm just going to do import table, which I believe was the name. And you can see it pulls the data when I do that. If you want all, you can do all, and it would include that top header row. And either way works. It's just up to you and your data and how you want to use it, but wanted to at least show that. Now, one thing to keep in mind with this, and it is for the best, is just because you have an import range doesn't necessarily mean that you have access to it. So here I'm in an alternate account, and I have this here, the import range. So let's say that you get a spreadsheet URL and you want to just be able to pull the data. If I'm using one that I don't have access to, hit enter, you're going to get that ref error. If you go into that corner and click in, it'll say you don't have permission. And that's because that's not my account. So you can't just pull one that is set there. So you need to make sure if you're trying to share one that you have that sharing option allowed for others. So let's go back. This is the data that we were trying to in the alt account, but I have the sharing private only to me, which is my junior account or alt account. Another person, the mat account, would not be able to access this with the import. So keep that in mind, both as if you're trying to share it and it's not working for someone, you probably need to share that data with them. But also peace of mind that no one can use that function to essentially access data that's in another spreadsheet that you don't want to. In this alt account, I am able to import it and load my own because I have access to it in my account. Hopefully that kind of makes sense. Again, there's some nuances with sharing it, but typically you have to have access to the entire sheet for this import range to work. The next one is IMPORTXML, and yours might actually look different here. If you don't have the version 2 on these, I made some updates on these ones, and so if you did this earlier and are following along, you may need to update these ones, and simply is because these don't always work. What you're doing with these is that you are pulling website data, and sometimes with the website data, it either changes where it's at or some of the settings where importing is no longer possible. There's different security things to make sure that people can't web scrape. And so this one that was working for me at one point no longer does. I found a different one and used that. And as I mentioned, there's a lot of stuff in here that I used, but essentially you need a website URL, you need an XPath query in order to pull the specific data you want, and then the locale, which is like what kind of language it is. Usually it'll go by default, and this is English in the United States. But when you hit enter, this is going to get pulled from this website right here. So you can see that there are these different parks with different information and things in it. If I open that up, you can see here, I'm pulling this data here and these things. It does not pull these links though. It has the text for it. So keep that in mind too, that it is limited and there are better ways like in Python to do web scraping or things like that. But this can get some basic information like you want to know all the state parks in this state or on this website. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Best practice too, if you do have one that works, is to pull the data, and I would copy it, and then in another one, paste values. So now I have this values here from this, just on the off chance that this link then later on doesn't work. I still have a static copy from whenever I pulled it. The next one is IMPORTDATA. And this is a way that you can actually pull data that would be from a link that like downloads or opens a spreadsheet file. So this one is actually in DGA, which is disc golf if you're familiar with it. And here you can see there's every single different mold of discs that are PGGA approved. And then you can get it in a .csv or comma separated value file. So if you right click and copy that link, that's what I got there. Otherwise, if you press it, it'll start to download. So it'll download and then you can open it up. And instead of downloading, opening it up, copying that data, pasting it into your spreadsheet, you can use this import. So let's take this, paste it in, hit enter, and you can see that it'll be loading. And there we are. So this is the data that was there. And as more things are added to that file, this will automatically update too. So if I wait, a week or two or months, this will change. In fact, depending on when you're watching this video, if you do this along, there might be more added to this list. So this can be a very helpful thing if there's a link out there. Now, again, if there is a website that you're using this that requires a passcode or something like that, some sort of security measure, you won't be able to use this export on it. And it makes sense. You wouldn't want someone else who doesn't have a password permission to do that. And in this function by itself, there is not a way to just allow a passcode or something like that to be into it. So just keep that in mind. Now, the next one is IMPORTHTML, and this is great if there is a table or list set in the HTML language. So Wikipedia is one of the best ones to just go out there and practice. Same for some support articles. So in this one, I have this article on Google that's a table, and then the index is going to be table 1, just in case there are multiple tables on that, and then the locale is the English US. So when I hit enter, you can see here, this actually pulls every single function that Google Spreadsheets has. This can be very helpful. Again, if that's a use case and it's in this correct format, and it doesn't have any security measures in place. So there's a lot of ifs for it to work, but when it does, it's great. Now, the last one is using the RSS or ATOM, and this would be for like news. If I put this in here, you can see here that this one has the different news articles, and this will have what the title is. Again, it'll look different as you see it, but this is a way that you can keep up with some current news from different sites and import them. And there are links too that are included in their own cell, so you can also take a look there. And yeah, so there's a lot of different use cases for every single one of these, and it's ultimately just important to know that these are out there. Hopefully you find this helpful. If you have any questions on these or anything else there, feel free to leave it in a comment, do those social things like share, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye now.